You have examples of furniture throughout your book. This is page 273, 275, 274. Gives you some basics of how to set these up and get them started. So you can go back to those for step by step. That's mostly black and white. Talks a little bit about wood. I want to jump up to page 313. They've drawn some beds, a bunch of pillows. Right? So now it's time to start having some fun with color and pattern and furniture. Textures, right? See, there's 3 different textures on that sofa. So last quarter, of course, we got you to this point where you can draw a room. We then understood that room in light and shadow. This quarter, I'm not going to have you redraw all of that. You have in your packet this page here, and this page here, and the desk. Which are all going to be done this week. So I've taken this page here and I've laid a sheet of marker paper over it, and I have traced this sofa lightly with my 01 pen. And I've traced the ottoman and a chair, a couple of chairs, so that I can show you today how I'm going to approach those. Let's say I want to do the sofa in a teal blue. I've got my practice sheet over here, so I'm going to start looking at blues that I want to put on that sofa. This is a lot like the exercise that you did on week 1 when you were translating, or you were transitioning, I should say, from blue to green, or from green to blue. I do have a nice teal color here. That's very dark. So I'm going to use that probably in the final marks for the shadows. I like that tone there. I think that's probably going to be my main color. Or that one. This is more green, this is more blue. And that's more green. All right, this is the winner right here. It's quite light. I want to make sure that I'm going 1 step lighter. So I kind of decide what color I want it to be, and I usually go 1 step lighter than that. Or I make sure that I'm using a little bit lighter color than I want to end up with, so that my strokes and underneath the final strokes are going to be something that I can go over top of, right? We all know that marker is a little bit unforgiving, and so we want to make sure that we put something down that's not all the way as dark as it can go. When I lay the marks down, every plane moves in 2 directions. Remember the cube when we were doing cross contour? This moves to vanishing point right or up and down. So the front of this sofa, I can move from left to right, or I can move vertically to fill in those shapes that I see, right? On top of the arm, this is a plane that moves towards vanishing point left and towards vanishing point right. So I'm going to move my marker towards vanishing point left. Now I've got some corners there that are too tight to get into. That's what the points are for. I'm going to always recommend that you start with the fat edge of your marker and try and do that, because otherwise you're going to get lines like this and you're going to have this coloring effect that's going to look really amateur. So another rule that we've mentioned is that the pencil should always be drawn on top of marker, or you're going to get sort of an amateur effect. So notice how here I drew up and down, then back and forth, but even though I've got that grid on there, at least that's reinforcing my perspective. A lot of people don't like to use markers because when you lay them down, you get this stripy effect, right? That's not a problem if you use it to your advantage, or if you use it, as I said, to enforce your perspective. See this ragged edge? I've got to come back over here. I'm chipping in now, so I'm turning the edge of my marker towards that line, and then I'm pulling it horizontally out across the top of that seat. I'm going to reserve these pillows so that I can do them in a bright contrast. And if I start at one line and work towards the other, and flip my paper and start at the other line and work towards the one I made, I'm less likely to have a ragged edge at the end of my drawing. All right? That's all filled in. It looks rather stripy. I'm not going to worry about it at this point because I know I'm going to go deeper blue. Now what happens? I'm going to put a bunch of this marker over here so that I can look at what happens when I put this on top of it. What happens when I put this on top of it? It's too intense, right? I don't want to go with my shadow. I thought maybe I'd do a blue shadow. But if I put this intense blue over here, then I'm not graying it out as it goes around the corner. So that's not really going to be good for me. That's much better. See how that's darker, but it keeps with the teal kind of concept? So I'm going to put this blue here. That's my reflected light. I probably want to put a cast shadow right here on the seat. Connect that a little bit to it. Here I've got some reflected light. So I've gone darker on these edges here. I can take this and put it in where the crack of the sofa would be, the crack of the cushion there. Now I want to delineate the difference between the top and the front of this as well. So I'm going to go back to the first marker that I used. You know how we said you can get like a double stroke that's going to be really, there it is. That's going to make it go darker. I'm going to come right here and I'll put another stroke over the front of it. So all the planes that are facing forward now are going darker. Now that's making it so I can't see the shadow, so I got to go even darker in here. It's not doing it, so I need to get something heavier. I'm going to take my 30%, see what happens with that. Doesn't really show. I'm going to go 50. I need some contrast here or nobody's going to be able to tell what I did. Now if I put the 50 down and it seems too dark like it does right now, I'm going to take a lighter marker and I'm going to blend it. And I'm also going to wait until it dries because I know that there's a lot of marker juice. There's a lot of mineral spirits in here right now and it looks really ragged and clunky. So I'm not going to judge it until it's much drier. Here, this is not my colorless blender. This is a lighter marker, but I'm going to use it to blend this gray over here. All right, the pillows. I want high contrast. I'm going to do orange. First, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to be like, how's that going to look with it? Well, that's really high contrast. Am I actually going to do that? Yeah, let's have some fun in this house, right? Practice color theory. And we'll do a really high contrast pillow. Now, the light's coming from this direction. I want to shade this side of the pillow, so I'm going to go to a darker orange. See how that looks on it. That looks pretty good, actually. This is quite brown by itself, yeah? Brown is a desaturated orange, so we know that shadows are desaturated. Just going to take that, sort of put a little bit of shadow on that side of the pillow. Pillow behind it, I kind of like the white, but maybe I want to do a texture on that. Let's do, when I don't know what to do, I go through crayon box. Red, yellow, blue, green, orange, purple, brown, or black. Purple would be really fun. Orange against purple is going to be quite shocking. I think I'm going to go with something analogous to orange so that it stays with my color tone. And I'm going to do a yellow. I'm going to do an orangey yellow so that it comes even closer to my orange, and that's going to help unify my drawing. So then I have contrast and unity. Right? Good design is a combination of contrast and harmony, and you don't want to have it missing either one. Okay, so there's an orangey yellow. I want to put a shadow on that. Let's see if the same brown tone that I used for the orange works. It's too dark, really. I think I'm going to use... that's better. I'm just going to put a little bit of darkness in this part of the pillow. Maybe I want to cast a little shadow onto this pillow here. And just let that turn away from the light. This, I want to actually cast a shadow there, but I think this is too dark. I'm not loving it, so I stopped. That's a good bit of advice, I guess, is to, if you don't like what it's doing, don't keep going. Just stop and do something else, and I'll grade you on the one that's working. How about that? See if I put a little orange on top of that yellow. No, then I'm also going to lose it in the other pillow. So what I need is a brown. I'm going up to my brown tones now, and I'm looking for something like a putty color or a, that's called mocha light. Look how gray that is. That's going to make a pretty good gray in here. So it feels like that's casting a shadow. I'm going to blend that out to sort of cover my bad. And then I'm going to have that. I really like that. That looks like those pillows are moving away from the light really well. Okay, let's say that the legs are brown, so I'm going to find a nice brown tone. I think that's the darker side of it. I want to have a light tone. Now this back here is all going to be in shadow, so I'm going to do that way. I'm thinking about this part of the leg facing up into the light. So I want to do that with a lighter brown. I can still go underneath the sofa the way that we did last quarter and punch in shadows. So remember how we took your 70%? Hold on a second, let me find my gray markers. This is that's my 70 right there. So I'm gonna put my 70 underneath the sofa. Then I'm going to take my 50, that's my 30, and should have lined up my markers. All right, I've misplaced my 50. But you remember how we did that. You go 70, and then you go 50, and then you go 30. Down to the floor, right? So you're getting a little bit of shadow underneath there. 70 under there. You can take this marker and you can put a little bit of, this is my 70% I'm using here. At the end, I'm going to take my 0.5. That's my L1. Take my micron pen. If you're not comfortable with the 5, use the 3 first and see how the line looks. I'm going to solidify this drawing to make it pop, to solidify my perspective, to unify the work, to make sure that I get the kind of grade that I want and show detail. When you guys say detail, I know you mean a lot of little marks and all that kind of stuff. What I want to see is that, for instance, at the bottom of this leg, you've got something going to left vanishing point and something going to right vanishing point. Those are the kind of details I'm looking for. I want to separate these pillows a little bit, so I'm going to draw something there and here. Kind of get a little bit. Notice I drew on the left side of the pillows and not on the right side of the pillows. I want that really to come up into the light. Notice how I drew here and I headed towards the other side, but I didn't quite hit that. Yeah. Now, I also can do that with a blue pencil, for instance. So this pencil on top of that is gonna make a little bit of something, something. So I can soften this up if I wanted to, go in with a bit of this in here and a bit of this in here. Doesn't really need it, but if I wanted to just change the texture a bit, notice how this looks more like fabric if I put a little bit of this scumbling on top. I'm drawing very lightly here. I have another blue pencil. Let's see what that does. In the light areas, I'm using my lighter pencil. See how it gives that a little bit of texture? I don't know if you can see that on camera. Yeah, it's coming out all right. I can go back into this yellow pillow and I can put a little bit of highlight over here perhaps. Sometimes we think we can't recover from these, but watch what happens with this bright yellow. Just a little bit of something shows up along there. I can take my white, I'm going to take this yellow and go on top of that orange so I get a little highlight in here. And if I do that and I don't like it, I'm going to take my colorless blender and I'm going to rub it out so that you really can't see it much. I'm going to put a highlight right along here. Notice how I've drawn this line here with white instead of with black. Along here I might want to put some white, maybe along here. I want to soften this up, or I want to pop that arm back up into the light. I want to pop this arm up into the light. I can see when I do that I forgot to do a cast shadow there. I'm going to take my 30%. I'm going to let that pillow shade the edge of that. Get myself a little bit better grade just because I'm showing that I know how light and shadow works. This here is too light. Notice how there's a part here that's just as light as the light part, and this all should be in shadow, so I need to knock that down a bit. Right? I can do it with the gray, I can do it with the blue, I can do it with the blue pencil, however I want to. But that gives you a good example of some of the kind of things that you might do. These are some demonstrations that I've done for other classes that help you to see that every time we do it, it's different, right? But that's the nature of the beast. You'll also have fabric samples next to these things so that you can maybe put them on a mood board for a client. You know, you'd have this drawn out here and then you'd have the actual velvet or whatever it is you wanted to use for that stool, and make a really nice presentation.